crisis and the current droughts hitting Europe highlight the vulnerabilities of our systems and undermine the good functioning of a number of economic sectors. By addressing energy and water efficiency, EU policymakers and companies can directly contribute to achieving the Green Deal's objective and support Europe and European industry to become more resilient to climate change while increasing our competitiveness. Today, I have the great pleasure to moderate an extremely interesting discussion on how public policy can support the enhancement of synergy between water and energy savings through, of course, the so-called water energy nexus. In the room with me, we have Veronica Manfredi. Veronica is the European Commission Director for Zero Pollution in DG Environment. She is leading the Commission policies on clean and well-managed water and control on industrial emissions. Good afternoon, Veronica. Then we have Tanya Pencheva. Tanya has the EU Government and Industry Relations Exile, and she's also chairing the Water Working Group of the European Alliance to Save Energy. Hi, Tanya. On the line, we have the pleasure to have Monica Frassoni. Monica is the president of the European Alliance to Save Energy. She has a long-standing political record, having been member of the European Parliament, co-president of the Greens EFA Group, and of the European Green Party. Hi, Monica. Then we have Abdelkader Meroufel, who is senior researcher at the Research Institute of Sweden, and who is also leading Water Europe Working Group on water distribution infrastructure and energy. Hi, Abdelkader. And then last but not least, Vanya Pakanyan. Vanya is Senior Global Policy Manager for Water at the Carbon Disclosure Project, CDP Worldwide. She is responsible for leading the intersection of CDP's work on policy and water. I would therefore like to open our discussion with Vanya. Vanya, how can we ensure the resilience of energy and water systems? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Agnese. Good afternoon, everybody in the room and online. It's really a pleasure for me to be here with you and discuss such an interesting and also important topic, especially considering the summer that we just left behind. Next one, please. So yeah, here I've included a picture showing that really we shouldn't forget. And I think, again, last summer was a reminder of how water systems are interconnected with our economic systems. The exceptional drought that we just experienced clearly highlighted that not only food system, but also economic activities like energy generation and industrial activities depend on water. And in Italy alone, here is an interesting statistics. It is estimated that the exceptional low river flows caused an hydroelectric generation decrease of almost 40% compared to previous year. Next one, please. But if we look at the near future, this year's dry weather conditions would be not exceptional anymore. In particular, the OECD estimates that the global water demand will increase by 55% by 2050. And in this respect, then the question is, do efficiency gains help us? We know that efficiency gains and improvement in water productivity, together with increases in supply, are expected to address 40% of this gap, but the remaining 60% will need to come from investment in infrastructure, water policy reforms, and last but not least, development of new technology. Next one, please. In practice, once we consider the three challenges that we have ahead of us, too much water, too little, or too polluted, then corporate and government efforts should converge towards these four goals. The first one is obviously improving water efficiency to increase water productivity, which means decreasing water consumption per unit of produced goods and services or generated electricity. Then the second option is to reuse water either within the same production process or downstream to make it possible for other users to withdraw, reclaim industrial or municipal water. Then the third option is to implement best available technologies to water treatment to minimize environmental impacts Last option, plan resilient infrastructure to ensure that severe weather does not threaten supply continuity. So water efficiency means doing more and better with less, by obtaining more value with the available resources. Doing more means that we need to reduce water consumptions per unit of production, and from a societal point of view, this implies maximizing the value of water across the different uses, which in essence implies improving water allocation. But if we want also doing better with less, then we must inevitably minimize the pollution and environmental impact of water use for the production of goods and services at every stage of the value chain. Next one, please. So if we move and consider also energy efficiency along with water use, we know that water supply and treatment facilities are energy intensive, meaning that there is an untapped potential for increasing energy efficiency by improving water management. According to the World Bank, efficiency would save operation maintenance costs from 20 to 40%, but business case for investing in water efficiency and energy efficiency at the same time is also reinforced by other factors like better access to commercial financing, lower vulnerability to future electricity price increases, and as the current crisis demonstrates, and reduced needs for new investment in power supply. But again, besides the current benefits, we should also take into account future risks linked to water insecurity. And here I'm going to quote some of the data that our data so some of the data that we CDP data clearly indicated that the cost of inaction could be over 5 times higher than the cost of response. But the good news is that companies are starting tackling these risks proactively, because 2/3 of our respondents either reduce or at least minimize their water withdrawals. So what we see is that the 2 most frequent responses are adopting water efficiency, conservation, reuse, and recycling measures, or developing flood emergency plans. So that these are the responses that we see happening through the responses we get from our respondents. However, and this is the not so good news, we also see that corporate action and efforts are focusing on addressing water insecurity. Would you please go back for a second? To address water insecurity, that is, they mean to address water quantity, but they don't consider managing water quality consistently. Water quality problems are underappreciated by business. And we saw that because the proportion of responding companies monitoring the quality of their wastewater discharges is 59%, and just 4.4% of our respondents are setting a reporting progress against pollution targets. Next one, please. But clearly, what we see is that corporates perceive water as a fundamental asset to their production processes, and they use potential revenue at risk metrics or cost indicators to price water risks. Again, evidence from the CDP data shows that corporates price water-related risk by using an internal price on water, and this is used to inform decisions on water savings, stewardships, conservation initiatives. It also drives cost reductions, it prevents risks, it informs investment decisions, and creates new business opportunities. In terms of water energy efficiency, our respondents note that water reduces costs, it reduces the energy bills, and also lower energy costs from pumping water. And the last trend we see is that some energy utilities started to increase reliance on technologies that do not use water or expand their energy efficiency programs that reduce to the need to rely on water sources for their generation. Next one, please. So And here I'm heading to the conclusion of my speech. What do we need? What sort of regulation do we need, both government and non-state actors, to pursue water security and efficiency goals at the same time? Here, I'd like to quote recent research that demonstrate that when policymakers do make realistic announcements and deliver on climate policies, then investors commit to climate targets and redirect financial flows consistently. The research was focusing on climate policies, but the policy implications are important for water resources protection and water pollution reduction too. So in essence, companies are looking for predictability within the policy environment, as well as flexibility in delivering. And according to the Water Ambition Loop, a concept that was first introduced by the UN Global Compact, regulators and corporates should push each other to do more. And this is why I'm using this virtuous circle. Could you please go back for a second, please? How shall they push each other? Companies by investing in innovative solutions and technologies to be able to raise the bar of what is achievable, and governments by introducing and enforcing coherent environmental policies that create an enabling environment for innovation diffusion. So next one, please. And here I'm really coming to the end of my speech. So this is to say that transparency and accountability, we believe that transparency and accountability can drive ambitious systemic action on water security. And in this respect, we at CDP welcome the new Commission's proposal on the Industrial Emission Directive revision, because it clearly sets a credible commitment to expand the scope of permit requirements, but also advance the possibility of having bold corporate action by mandating environmental management systems and introducing transformational plans. I'd like to really conclude here by quoting our experience in working with indicators of corporate performance, and by pointing to three principles that we think should be followed in developing this proposal further. The first one is that we need relevant and comprehensive water information about corporate impacts, targets, risks, and opportunities, and their corresponding action plans and resources. In this respect, the current proposal covers impacts and targets thoroughly, but does not explicitly mention risk and opportunities. And as I pointed in my presentation, this is a key element to trigger corporate action. The second principle I'd like to quote is that there are multiple breakdowns of metrics that can be considered, and for us, having facility level data is crucial. So again, we welcome the consideration of this type of metrics in the proposal, but we also would like to point out that we need to also consider context conditions, like for instance, operating in a particularly stressed water stressed area. We also welcome the inclusion of consideration of life cycle performance. This is crucial, but we really want to stress that creating the enabling environment is key. And I'll stop here. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vanya. And now I would like to turn to Veronica. Veronica, could you please share with us the European Commission's approach on how the water, energy, and Nexus agenda can be advanced? Thank you.
Grazie mille, Agnese. I'm extremely happy to be with all of you today, and I thank you for organizing this event, because I think the more we talk about these things, the more hopefully we will manage to create some snowball effect to look at them holistically. Well, I've been asked actually to focus on the energy efficiency of water utilities, in particular relevant, of course, in the context of the triple climate, biodiversity, and pollution crisis we are facing, as well as in the current, that I would define, modern thorny geopolitical context. Water and energy systems are interdependent. We need water in all phases of energy production, but we also need energy to abstract, transport, treat, and deliver water. Water and energy systems have, however, until recently been developed, managed, and regulated independently. Yet the need to better integrate the water and energy nexus in our thinking and actions has become, in my view, even more important and urgent following the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. We all heard how strongly President Ursula von der Leyen stressed the need for more EU solidarity and strategic autonomy in her State of the Union speech last week. And this with focus on both energy and food security. It goes without saying that water plays a fundamental role for both. If lack of energy significantly impacts our quality of life and economic development model, the lack of water threatens life existence itself. We are now revising parts of EU environmental law, including some important pieces of EU water acquis, to ensure it is fully aligned with European Green Deal. We therefore have a golden opportunity to address the water energy nexus. I will briefly focus on where we stand in relation to 5 specific pieces of EU law, namely the Energy Efficiency Directive, the Water Reuse Regulation, the Drinking Water Directive, the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, and the Industrial Emissions Directive. Now, the Commission proposal for a recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive, tabled in July 2021, plays a key role in delivering the Fit for 55 package. It increases our ambition with higher and binding targets for energy efficiency at EU level, recently further increased with the REPowerEU package. A stronger role of the public sector is envisaged so that it can better lead by example, for example, with obligations to reduce energy consumption, more efficient renovations, systematic considerations of energy efficiency in public procurement. The proposed new obligation to decrease final energy consumption in the public sector by 1.7% each year will cover a wide range of public sector activities while allowing flexibility to the member states to choose which public bodies and sectors to target, including water and energy sectors. The proposal introduces a new dedicated article on the energy efficiency first principle to lay down a legal basis for its practical application. The goal by the European Commission is to secure that energy efficiency first is taken into account across all sectors, well beyond the energy systems as such, and leads to an accelerated uptake of cost-effective energy efficiency solutions. Both the energy and the water sectors can benefit from this approach. Let's move now to the Water Reuse Regulation, where I see huge potential for this piece of law to become really an important piece in our puzzle of water management. Let's bear in mind that it will become applicable across all member states wishing to embrace it as from next June. This regulation aims to primarily stimulate water reuse across the EU's agricultural sector. As a key component of that food security we'll all aspire to, and as Mrs. Akkanyan just told us, also tackling the biggest demander of water use that we have in the EU. But this regulation also clearly lays the ground, in conjunction with the imminent revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, for stimulating the uptake of reused water also for other purposes, ranging from urban greening to industrial uses. Let's move now to the new Drinking Water Directive, which will have to be complied with across all member states as from January next year. So we are really, really close. Drinking water distribution today consume 35,000 of gigawatt hour, which represents 1.13% of the electricity currently produced across the European Union. Savings of up to 30% could be achieved by reducing water leakages and improving pumps and pressure in the distribution networks. While the new directive focuses on water quality, it also has specific provisions on reducing leakages and water losses to improve water quantity management as well. by January 2026, member states will have to have assessed the water leakage levels and the potential for improvement across their territories. By January 2028, the Commission will then set a threshold based on member states' assessment and the Union's average leakage rate. Member states exceeding this threshold will have to present an action plan to reduce their leakage rate. The directive also requires member states to secure that in their water bills, water suppliers give more information to the public on efficiency, for example, on volume consumed per year in the household in relation to previous years, leakage rates of the distributor, of the supplier network, as well as the way in which the costs are calculated. Again, copying, I would say a little bit, the increased transparency of energy bills. So more information on how the structure of the tariff system per cubic meter of drinking water is formed. Now let's move to the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. We plan to adopt a proposal to revise it very soon. The need to improve the energy efficiency of the wastewater sector has been fully taken into consideration in our doings. Indeed, already in our 2019 evaluation of the current directive, we came to the conclusion that the wastewater sector has potential not only to reduce its own energy consumption, currently amounting to around 0.8% of the overall EU energy use, but also to produce in a steady, reliable manner, not dependent on weather variations, renewable biogas out of sewage sludge. This sector also offers well-suited location for producing renewable energies, notably wind and solar. And this has been explicitly pointed by the European Commission in its recent REPowerEU package when identifying what we call the go-to areas. While I cannot disclose further details at this stage, I can reassure you that when revising the current directive, we have very carefully looked at how to possibly design a trajectory towards the energy neutrality of this entire sector. Whilst it may not be feasible at individual urban wastewater plant level, it could be an important goal to achieve at member state level in contribution to the broader climate neutrality efforts. EU-ASE, Water Europe and CDP have all submitted very concrete proposals throughout the revision process, and I really would like to seize this opportunity to thank you very much for all your inputs. Let's now move to the fifth directive in focus. In the European Green Deal, the Commission expressed back in 2019 its commitment to address pollution from large industrial installations. It is time to fully align this legislation with our climate, energy, and circular economy policies. The Commission proposal for a revised industrial emission directive, published in April this year, takes fully into account policy and legal links with the Water Framework Directive, the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, and covers the reform both water use efficiency and water use aspects. Best available techniques conclusions adopted for the various sectors that will fall into the revised scope of the Industrial Emission Directive will look into setting benchmarks also for water consumption and reuse, either as part of the industrial operators' environmental management systems or as binding performance levels to be set in each individual installation's permit. Before concluding, let me refer to the important role that digitalization and smart technologies play in improving both water and energy efficiency. Circular economy and the zero pollution action plans both strongly highlight this dimension, and much work is ongoing across the EU to boost water smart digital solutions as well. The Renovation Wave strategy that we launched in October 2020 sets the ambitious target of renovating up to 35 million buildings across the EU by 2030. Considering that 40% of our energy goes into buildings, this represents a major opportunity for energy savings, but water efficiency can be enhanced too. If focus is kept on using such water smart technologies, on promoting water use inside our buildings, on harvesting rainwater. In all this, industry, you are called to play a very key role. It should not only keep pace with the policy changes I'm describing, but ideally drive them. This requires significant public and private investment. Along with other EU funds, Next Generation EU will provide an unprecedented boost in public funding. But public investment is not enough. The new taxonomy regulation will also help to direct private funds to more sustainable investment by helping, so we really hope and trust, private investors to finance more the transition towards a climate neutral and cleaner tomorrow. I am convinced that only by joining forces, we will together make our future water resilient. And I really want to trust peaceful too. Thank you.
Grazie mille, Veronica, for having shared these very interesting insights. Now I would like to move to Abdelkader. Abdelkader, we are curious to hear about how the water energy nexus is tackled from the research perspective. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to bring some input from the point of view of research and what is done in this direction to tackle this topic related to the energy and water nexus issue. So I will start to cover a little bit the background of this nexus, just that to have a common understanding, since we are all talking to this topic. And of course, you will notice that many points that have been raised by the previous speakers. As any research activity, so there are some common technical challenges that can face both sectors, energy and water, that I will try to summarize in a very brief way. After that, so some technological opportunities that already exist and merit some attention from the end users and all stakeholders in both sectors. And the main or the core message of this talk is the research efforts and the directions toward a lot of work is done. Of course, there are still some pending gaps that I will cite some few examples of. So next, please. Yeah. Before just to move on, I would like to say a few words about this silo mentality, which I think most of us have noticed the presence of this thinking way that you can find in organizations, industry, R&D, a lot of places. So, and this make too much wasting of money, investment, time, and raise seriously the concern and ask to move together to fix the different challenges that can be common. And that's why this concept of energy and water nexus raised. Next slide, please. So what is this nexus? It's an approach that aims to bridge the gap between two vital sectors for the modern society. And what is the need for this approach? So it's dictated, as mentioned by previous speaker also, by the shortage of resources in both sectors, by the overlapping of challenges. So when we talk efficiency, it's present in both sectors. And also by the need of proper management. So this is something, another dimension which add the necessity for this approach to manage different problems. And this nexus can be seen from different angles. Of course, it's influenced by the background of the two sectors professionals. So each one is trying to look on his window, and there is a need to combine both views and solutions. At the end, this nexus approach, it will allow the maximization of opportunities in both sectors and to increase energy efficiency and water in water sector and vice versa, opposite. The use of water systems to add flexibility to the power systems, try to extract more energy from water instead of looking only to the consumption aspect, and of course, reduce the water footprint in energy industries. If we talk about the development of this nexus approach, so there are also three axes. The first one, where there is strategic initiatives that can be long-term with high impact actions. The second axis can be from operational perspective on existing technological solutions. And one of the key points which is mainly discussed today also is the policies aspect, where there is a need to design cross-linking policies between these two sectors. Next, please. Yeah, if we try to look to both sectors, energy and water, so it's matter of sources, matter of recovery, reuse, and in this case, we may have a different type of challenges that can be technical, economical, from management perspective. Of course, I'm trying to stay on the technical part as a research and development, but some of the aspects they have been raised by previous speakers. So the technical opportunities, they continue to be proposed to both sectors in silo approach. And one important aspect that I would like to highlight here also is that the technical challenges, they may need either some engineering solutions, which I will call it best practices, and in this case, we can make a lot of saving for the research and development community. The other possibility, of course, if the challenge is not well understood and need more studies. So in this case, it's a research task, research and development task. One of the examples of best practices in water and wastewater systems is the program called Blue Cities that has been run previously. And I would recommend to have a look on this as one of the examples that can make a lot of saving for water network or wastewater systems. Next slide, please. Yeah, this one. So if we try just to simplify the talk about the different technical challenges that face both sectors, so they can fit under three main axes. The first one is consumption or the efficiency. The second one is the environmental impact, and the third one is the sustainability. So it's all about these three directions where the sizing of the challenge or the determination of its size in both sectors, it's really facing a serious influence from the data quality. And this is one of the challenges that I think we can have some discussion about it. Next slide, please. Yeah, I try to extract some of the technological opportunities when it comes to the energy saving in water sector. And if we want to move really to a smart water society, so we have three axes that affect the energy saving in water sector. The first one is the water losses or leaks. And in this direction, a lot of sensors are under development with different TRL levels and implementation success stories. The second aspect is that the pumping and valves improvement and trying to reduce the energy consumption for these specific components in the network. And of course, we should not lose the part which is related to the water consumption, because it's part of the network, and some smart domestic water meters connected to the network management can be of great interest. At the end, so it's moving toward one direction, which is the smart and integrated, both operation and monitoring of the network, taking benefit from the different technology that has been developed up to now. And yeah, we can move to the next slide. And in the same way, if we want to save water in energy sectors, so we can notice that we have some three main directions. First one is the different cooling technologies that can be dry or hybrid, trying to minimize the water footprint, trying to recover more water in this energy sector, and to improve also energy efficiency in itself. And of course, if we think from the Nexus approach, the reduction in the carbon footprint in energy sector, it should not induce an increased water footprint. So you can see that a lot of opportunities exist and merit to be studied and validated in field conditions. Next, please. I tried to look to the last 10 years of research activity using database scopes, and I put some few keywords: water, energy, and Nexus. And you can see on the top right, the figure showing the evolution of research efforts in terms of quantity during the last 10 years. So there is a growing interest to do more from research community. And if we try to find where the published or where the works are published, in which journals, you can see that the main journals are focused on environmental, energy, and engineering topics. So this gives some indication where people are more focused in terms of research efforts. From geography perspective, I think that Europe is doing well compared to other places around the world, facing the same challenges and the same, or taking the same approach to fix the problems. Next, please. Yeah, these are some few of the research efforts or directions in global view. The first one is about big data analysis and the use of simulation tools for the management of the water network and trying to minimize the energy consumption and the water consumption also. One of the interesting topics is the hydropower generation in water sector, trying to maximize the value of the water by producing energy instead of only consuming. And the other direction is the pumping with less environmental impact. Some other emerging energy efficient desalination technologies, dry cooling technology, how they can be considered in some cases, not all times. The renewable energy direction, so it's trying to move also to less water footprint. From the wastewater perspective, there is also an intention to recover maximum of nutrient and elements and also energy from this wastewater. And the last point is the integration between water, wastewater, and energy in terms of operation, and trying to put the three systems together to maximize the value and reduce the waste. Yeah, next slide. Even though with this effort, so still there are some research and development needs. I try to summarize some of them. It's not a full list. So one of the challenges is the multi-leaks detection, the validation of the different technologies in peak conditions where the network size can play a role, and its complexity. It will make some challenge to develop technologies. Optimization of monitoring and detection tools, location. Yeah, one strong point, which is the energy efficiency of machine learning tools as we are moving towards smart water systems. So this machine learning, they have also their own energy aspect that should be considered in future research and development efforts. Association between machine learning and IoT technologies for integrated problem solving. Energy consumption in different wastewater treatment processes. Also, there is some lack of benchmarking in terms of, and this is very crucial if we want to optimize the effort in the future. And of course, one of the points that has been raised previously is the resilience of wastewater treatment processes facing the climate change and other stresses. So toward better reaction to these different stresses. So on this, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Abdelkader. Now I would like to give the floor to Tanya. Tanya, can you tell us please more about the water energy synergies in the utility sector? Thank you.
Thanks, Agnese, and hi everyone. So just to tell you a few words about Xylem. Xylem is a global water technologies company, and we provide water solutions, the whole water cycle. We participate in the whole water cycle. We have solutions for utilities, for buildings, for industry, and we're driving very much the digital agenda. Digitalization of the water sector is very important to us. As mentioned by other colleagues, this is where the future is. And so at Xylem, we really believe in the power and the importance of the water energy nexus through technologies, but also very much through a legislative framework, as we are discussing today. And why is it so important? It's simply because energy can be renewable, but water resources are finite. So we have some quite big issues to solve here. We are in a very big, unprecedented energy crisis, as we have we all know, and at the same time we are seeing the very big impact of climate change this summer across Europe with the droughts, then followed by floods, and we're going to see much more of it. So we have urgent issues to solve, and it is through the water energy nexus as one of the very important ways for us to advance this agenda. If we look at the energy, the water needs of the energy sector, typically it's about 74 billion cubic meters per year that are needed of fresh water for the energy sector. And this is similar to the water consumption of the agricultural sector. So just to show the magnitude of where we are going. And at the same time, if we look at the public water supply, water needs, it's about 50 billion cubic meters of water. And also the public water supply uses about 2.6% of the energy in the European Union. And the energy cost of treating water, for the public water supply, it's about 30-40% of the municipal bill. So in this energy crisis and huge bills that we all face, again, issues to solve there. The possibilities are immense to address the water energy nexus. We discussed already, or mentioned by some of the speakers, about drinking water. In drinking water, the biggest energy use is within transportation. So the distribution of water is where you need most energy, and we have very big leakages across the EU. So addressing those water leakages, very critical, in the coming years to save more energy and not to have to pump more water, which requires more energy when you have a leakage. On the other hand, you have the wastewater sector, which is very different than drinking water in the sense that the wastewater sector can produce all of the energy it consumes. Because it can generate biogas from the sludge, the sewage sludge, which can be then used on site or reintegrated within the energy system. And over the past years, we've seen utilities, wastewater plants going energy positive, meaning they produce, of course, biogas on their premises, and then also take the heat, so they recover the heat, and they put it back into the grid or into a district heating system. However, where there's a little bit of a gap is not all of the sites or municipalities are equipped with the infrastructure. So you may not have the necessary infrastructure to put back the heat in the grid or district heating system. And this is where this energy is being lost because there's not a lot of storage available or storage technologies to keep this heat on the plant. So important also going forward is that municipalities would work together with the energy and water utilities to fix this problem and to make sure there's the right infrastructure or tariffs or contractual conditions, whatever may be needed in that sense. And we are seeing even in some countries where municipalities are merging the water and the energy utilities, they become one utility. So this is an interesting concept that maybe it's going to be even more popular in the future. And then in terms of technologies, the opportunities are immense at very low cost. So you can save 50% of the energy used by water utilities through existing technologies in a very low or negative even cost. And when we talk about low cost, we talk about saving operational costs. So if you save operational costs, obviously save cost, or even you can generate net savings for the utility. A few examples are intelligent pumps. With intelligent pumps, you can save up to 70% of the energy used per utility, and you can save up to 80% of their inventory, so saving costs, of course. We have in wastewater treatment, for example, the aeration systems is very important, the efficiency of the aeration system. And if you place efficient aeration systems, you can save up to 40% of the energy use as well. The power of digital, we all know it's there in all sectors. And what is quite powerful these days and important are digital twins. So if you place a digital twin on a wastewater utility, you can replicate real-time scenarios and then make solutions for the problems that may be encountered. And as such, depending on the size of the wastewater treatment plant, but you could save 30% of energy. It really depends then on the size of the plant. And then a final technology to mention, I mean, there are many more, but efficient mixers for biogas production are also key in producing biogas. And then the efficiency of the mixer is quite important as well to take the most energy available in the sewage sludge. So in a nutshell, I mean, everything exists. Costs can be very low because you don't need a lot of new infrastructure, especially with digital solutions. And at the end of the day, it only can be beneficial in terms of saving costs as well. Of course, there probably are gaps, as the colleague mentioned, on some research and development. I mean, technologies are evolving, but it is an area which is going to keep on evolving. And if we talk about the topic of today, do we have a proper legislative framework to address the water energy nexus? I mean, we do have certain elements, but if I have to answer with one word, I would say no, because we are addressing it ad hoc, I think, so far. But I think in the future, it's very important there's a more coherent approach. So the water energy nexus becomes an element of each relevant legislation that is being assessed and appropriately addressed. I mean, as such, having a water strategy, for example, is something will be quite important in our view with the next commission to actually coherently look at the water sector. What are the issues, what we have addressed with the previous legislation, what's coming up for the next legislation, what else we may need, but also to look at, in a coherent funding way. Because, you have, for example, hydrogen strategy, which comes with a very big funding to support such a sector and such market development. And water is very much public sector. So there's already fundings, recovery funds, cohesion funds. There's already quite a lot, but a water strategy to come with addressing the legislative issues and frameworks, and including the water energy nexus, of course, as one part of it, but funding also to be channeled in a more systematic way to address this, to help utilities to get to that next level. So there's a bit of the wish list, I guess, for the next commission. And then to finish off, I can see that, which is not too far away anyway, the next commission, next year, I guess, time to start preparing. But so, in terms of the current framework, so there's the Energy Efficiency Directive, as Veronica mentioned. I mean, we're very happy to see the increased targets. So this is really great. And great to see that there's already an obligation for the public sector. The one flip side to it that we don't believe that in essence, this provision for the public sector would bring a lot of change in the water sector, because the obligated parties are up to be chosen by the member states. I think you may bring a lot in the energy sector. So, energy transportation. So the bigger, let's say, energy consumers than water sector. But we don't believe that many member states would make a water sector as obligated party. It may happen, but typically they will choose for the bigger ones. And this is transport, energy, district heating. So it will bring some change, but we don't believe maybe that what we really need in the water sector to cut the energy consumption. For the renewable energy, also great to have increased targets, and especially also with the Repower EU, a new element to have the wastewater treatment plants as renewable go-to areas. This is excellent, and we look forward to the adoption of these provisions. Drinking water directive as well. For the first time, there is assessment of leakages, which wasn't there before. So a very good step forward. The only question is, do we have the time by 2026 and 2028 to wait for that? Because leakages already are between 20 and 60%, depending on the country. And with, I think, what we are seeing we saw this summer, I'm not sure we have that much time. So maybe something else to be looked into. But the biggest opportunity we have is the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive that, of course, is coming up quite soon. And we truly, hopefully, would like to see energy efficiency targets there to really make some, obligations to whether it's going to be a utility or member states. I mean, I understand, of course, this is something you're trying to look at the best perspective, but having those targets would drive a change. And we've seen this in the Energy Efficiency Directive, in the Renewables Directive, in all the directives. Targets drive change. It's an obligation. And we would really hope to see an ambition there to advance this agenda. And I mean, we have at the wastewater treatment plants, we have one of the largest sources of energy available to us at low cost. So, it is really, we need to utilize this. I mean, this is what we really need to do. And maybe we need to take some harder decisions right now. And there will be, not a very easy adoption, but I think the cost of non-action, and as mentioned by CDP, I think is higher than, maybe not taking the right decision. So I'll stop here, but looking forward to the questions.
Many thanks, Tanya. And last but certainly not least, Monica. Could you please share with us the aspect of water in the energy efficiency first principle? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much, and I want to apologize because I was only able to listen from Veronica onwards because I am in a forum here in Alba in Piemonte dealing with circular economy, and I must say that there was a lot of talk about this energy and water nexus. And I am very happy of this because some of you, and among them Veronica, but also the colleagues, remember that this is a relatively new issue, certainly in the legislative conversation and legislative work at the level of the European Union. And therefore, it is very important that these issues are actually entering into the understanding that in order to create a situation in which Europe is fully decarbonized, but also able to develop its own economy and society, this nexus is absolutely key. Do you listen? Do you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yes?
We can.
So I don't need this. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that the issue of energy, one of the most important principles in which we see the realization, we could see the realization of this water and energy nexus is certainly the energy efficiency first principle. That in itself could be considered to be something obvious, meaning before you start using water or energy and energy for water, check what you could do in order to save this energy before basically either building a new infrastructure or create a situation in which you are actually wasting or consumption. Then I heard some very interesting ideas about what research is doing in this direction. And I believe that there is also an issue of approach in the implementation of the energy efficiency first that the speakers did address. One is the so-called silo approach, that is to say the fact that we tend to deal with all the elements of energy and of water in a separated way, and therefore we don't see very much the link. And second is the collection of data. This question of data, of how much you can save, of how much you waste in terms of energy, is certainly one extremely challenging issue. Also, when we try to promote with policymakers and with decision makers this agenda. So I can say that I am really pleased that in the discussion about the Energy Efficiency Directive, it was, I wouldn't say easy, but it was possible to insert some parts that have a direct link with both the energy efficiency first and the efficiency first principle and the water energy nexus. That is to say, to create a situation in which by law you need to consider the effect of water also of having to spare energy. And this is something that was not there before and therefore has to be absolutely underlined. An element that, of course, we are not extremely happy when it comes, this is not only related, of course, to water, to the way in which the energy efficiency first principle is considered by, in this case, by the Commission, because we are only talking about it in a full implementation of the energy efficiency first principle, where we are talking about extremely big infrastructure or investments, and this is actually not very easy to deal with when we really want to create in the understanding of this nexus by people and also in understanding how important it is to first check how much you can save before you decide to do something. If the developments and the investments requested are too big, then the quality, the importance and basically the systematic way of implementing this approach basically go away. But at least as far as the at least as far as the Energy Efficiency Directive is concerned. The developments are certainly positive. Of course, we would have wanted more, but you know, that's normal. We see that in the resolution which was adopted by, not the resolution, in the text that was adopted by the European Parliament on the 14th of September. The effect was not, the result was not only to raise significantly the target, the overall target of energy efficiency, but also a clearer recognition of this nexus. And I will make a very short list of the provisions that recognize this. First is a fuller and more accurate definition of what the water and energy nexus actually is. The recognition that the water is a priority energy and use sector, the encouragement to include the monitoring of water consumption and energy in the energy audits and the energy management system under Article 11. Actually, this point is for me really key, because it, you know, the audits are a very important instrument. Italy was one of the countries which actually implemented it well, and it became something that becomes a sort of practice. And if we are able to introduce this water element in this kind of practice, I think that this will have a very positive example. Of course, this systematic insertion is not yet fully there, and Veronica spoke about the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. Probably there is a way to introduce this element also there. Another point that I wanted to highlight is the fact that we have to use at the maximum what actually happened this year. The droughts and the issue of water use is very much in the mind of everyone. I was, for example, stunned, and there are some data that were completely hidden till now. I was very surprised, for example, in my own city, that is in the north of Italy, it is considered to be one of the most advanced and one of the most green cities in the whole of the country. There is a waste media average of about 40%. And because of leakage. So you see that there is really a lot of awareness raising to be done. The European Parliament adopted a resolution with a lot of ideas and a lot of legislative resolution, but it is also an instrument that can be very important, above all if us outside the Parliament use it and mention it a lot in order to orientate also the debate outside. And Veronica and others know very well that when something enters into a European Parliament resolution, a few years later finds itself very regularly in ambitious resolution. Last point I want to do before closing is the issue of connecting smart water management and energy efficiency, because this is a way to improve climate mitigation. The colleague that spoke about the different research and instruments that are now envisaged also mentioned this. I believe that these issues of this technological connection, let's say, are going to be very important. And there is an element that we have to, of course, to overcome is the conviction of people that this is very expensive and that this is a sort of fancy thing that is not having the results that we would like to have. So I think that with this I can close here, thanking you very much for this opportunity, and repeating that I'm sorry not to be there, but I am putting forward the points on energy efficiency in another place.
Many thanks, Monica. Given that now the round of presentation is over, I'd like to open the floor, first of all, to the online participants, in case they have questions, they can mark them in the chat, of course, also to the participants in the room. Otherwise, I'll start shooting for questions. I think, yes. Or maybe.
Example of the Nexus.
Sorry?
Is there an example of the Nexus?
Exactly. So I'll start by sharing a question from Sylvia. She's asking, is there an example of a Nexus approach application to water energy management projects? And does the Nexus have a database with relevant cases? I open the floor to the panelists. I don't know whether Vanya or Abdelkader, you want to start?
Yeah, I can reiterate what I mentioned in my presentation as an introduction. We do see that once water becomes scarce, the respondents to CDP start to put in place adaptive strategies, where adaptive strategy means not just saving water for the sake of saving water, but also saving water for the sake of saving costs, energy costs in particular. So this is one of the way the Nexus is applied at corporate level, but it's not yet obviously the only one. So I'm happy to leave the floor to the other panelists.
Thank you, Vanya, sorry. Abdelkader, please, I see that you want to take the floor.
Yeah, I want just to highlight one example from an industry from where I'm coming, which is seawater desalination. So there are a lot of effort to break down the energy consumption in the different desalination processes. And it's taking benefit from latest development in pumping system, and involves also trying to extract as much as possible of energy. And at the end, the outcomes is people are targeting mostly how to reduce the water production cost. So on a life cycle perspective, as mentioned in the speech of Tanya. So this is one of the examples which come to me because I saw it in my experience in industry.
Many thanks, Abdelkader. So I don't see other questions. I will now start sharing some ideas with our panelists. I'll start maybe with Monica. Monica, can you tell us a bit more what are, in your opinion, the obstacles and challenges to an appropriate legal framework for the water energy nexus? What should be done, in your opinion, to overcome them? Please.
So I think that one of the most important issues I mentioned already, and that is the lack of awareness and lack of acknowledgement of the importance of this link. Unfortunately, this is the case also for climate change in general. That is why I believe that the issue, and also the Commission has some funds to do this, the issue of training, awareness raising, going to the field to actually show concrete examples of how things can be actually done to the local authorities above all, because local authorities is where this kind of decisions are more often than not taken. Try to see with the different companies what can be the potential, but also the advantages of having this kind of proactive approach is also very important. I think that legislation is certainly a very important point. But as we know, in terms of implementation, that in all issues concerning environment are the worst implemented parts of the legislative acquis of the EU. And therefore, I think that the effort that has to come from Brussels also to help with the implementation of the different measures is, according to me, absolutely key, together with this training. Also, what we have to be very aware of is that people are touching their house, yeah, but they're not doing 55 times. They're doing it once, if they do it. So the fact of getting it right, I do the windows, I do the insulation, I do the roof, I also have to be somehow pushed to deal with water. And therefore, this kind of being able to connect to energy efficiency intervention, also water intervention, is certainly very important. I think that there is a lot to do for all of us, the operators, the public affairs, the local authorities, but also the EU, because the issue of the implementation of the regulation and the instruments that can be given in order to do that is certainly one of the key points that is facing us today. And not only in this kind of legislation, but also in this kind of legislation. Thank you.
Many thanks, Monica. Building upon what you just mentioned, I would like then to turn to Veronica. I hope that, Veronica, you found our exchange today interesting. I would like to understand, besides what you just shared, do you think that the Commission will develop water strategy in the future like you have done as Commission in many other fields? Please.
I would certainly not exclude it, and I would find it likely. That's the most correct and I would say, yes, policy-wise balanced reply I can give. Because I have the impression that there is a growing awareness also among policymakers at different levels. And of course, I would say, please continue pushing as industrial actors and in general economic interested parties, because I think it's really important. I mean, somehow it shocks me that when I started working in this field, already it was very well known that water scarcity, water availability issues were scoring since a number of years in the index of the most feared business risks at worldwide level. But somehow the regulatory response indeed takes more time. I think that this fact speaks by itself. The fact that the Commission tabled the proposal for water use in 2018 and we had to negotiate an article to secure that certain member states may not apply water use in their territory and some will not apply water use in their territory in 2022, to me shows that there is a big gap between what we're discussing here and where we're united in saying that the future doesn't look really bright for water availability and the perception at government's level. Apologies, thank you. And may I say, even to some extent at European Parliament level, I was very happy to listen to Monica, and there's some progress that we've made, but may I say that I would have hoped for certain things to be even better tailored for in the parliamentary debate. If Parliament is supposed to represent the voice, let's say, more progressive voice of what citizens and businesses really need, and beyond what maybe to the best of our capacity, either we in the European Commission or the member states propose, well, one could hope for something more. So I think there is really a problem. And where I see the problem, I listen to what is suggested by Monica, Brussels, help us, more awareness raising campaign, more this and the other. We are every time dealing with the tip of the iceberg and looking at what's the root. And the root is water, what's really not working in the planetary boundary. But we are always kind of just dealing with the burning fire and not going deeper. So yes, I believe, however, that we have two important milestones coming ahead. One will be COP27 this November, climate adaptation. I understand that there is a strong will to secure that the water dimension will be very high, because, and I take it as an important fact that the actualité is constantly pushing water events to the fora. I think there is a reason why this is happening. Sometimes at a certain point in time, the planet simply launches the signal that humanity needs to get in order to open its eyes. So we will hear more about water awareness after COP27, I believe. And I also think that the fact that we will have in March this important conference in New York at the United Nations level, where the world will be taking stock of where we are in implementing the UN Water Decade, will provide a very important opportunity. What I can report back is that I see that a number of member states, I would say a huge number, a number of member states are growing in awareness and are showing willingness to prepare a common position ahead of this conference. So I think already that could be a moment of, combining forces and maybe coming up already with first common vision papers. If you ask me, I think that the agenda of water should be rotating around 3 S. solidarity, like we have for energy, storage, that we don't have, and I would say, security in all respects, security of supply, security geopolitically. I don't know how many of you are aware that even behind the Russian war of aggression, there was a long-standing litigation after the Crimea invasion between Russia and Ukraine on water. And the very first infrastructure that the Russian troops have bombarded on 24th of February when they attacked Ukrainian territory was the dike built by the Ukrainians to impede water to go to Crimea. So I think this fact speaks by itself, both in terms of the amount of irritation that this provokes and how much, on the other way around, if you manage to do things differently, water is the terrain for cooperation. So, voila, solidarity, storage, security.
Many thanks, Veronica. I see that Monica raised her hand.
I wanted to underline what Veronica just said, because this is not a superficial issue, the question of how many people are working in the different areas. This is a real battle that we also from our sectors and from our end should take up, because over the last years, the Commission has been reduced their staff more and more, and also, or at least it didn't raise, but the responsibilities went up, with the result that you have lots of national staff, which of course bring them with them their national interests, and above all, temporary staff. And this has a real impact in the quality of what they are doing and also in the capacity to monitor implementation. And when I was in Parliament, it was already many, many years ago, we really made a fight in order to make sure that the Commission could get from the budget, from the budgetary authorities, more staff. But at those moments, the Commission itself, in order not to have, to be unfriendly with member states, said, no, we don't need more. I think that this is a real political issue that put at stake the way in which the legislation is done and the way in which the legislation is implemented. So I hope that every time that we are asking for more, we also ask for a strengthening of the European institutions. Thank you.
Many thanks, Monica. I see that in the chat there are some questions for Tanya. I start by taking the first one. So Tanya, in your opinion, how long will it take for utilities to move through digital twins? And then I see another one regarding the wastewater treatment plants. What about, can you share some example of excellent wastewater treatment plants that generate a lot of energy, please?
Thanks. So in terms of the digital twins, this is happening more and more. We see it happening in the utilities and the wastewater treatment sector and overall water utilities. But how long it's going to take? It's a very good question. If we're just waiting for it to happen, let's say, without any further incentives or any further push, maybe we don't have a concrete answer, but maybe 2030 is the year if everything has to happen by its natural way. So I think this is where the European Union has helped so much with its environmental legislation to push actually a big change, which wouldn't have happened if there wasn't the waste legislation, emissions trading scheme and whatnot. So I think this is where also this moving to more smart water, digital water can be incentivized by existing legislations. Also in terms of providing some funding, some of the funds could be channeled, and some of the countries already are including in their recovery plan, digitalization of smart water solutions. But not everybody has seen that. So I think also channeling some funds maybe to help the utilities to come to this next level of digitalization could be quite useful. So I think probably many years ahead by natural way, but it could be helped a little bit more through legislation and funds. And of course, we do our part to raise awareness about the benefits. This is, of course, what we do on the ground. In terms of good examples of wastewater treatment plants that generate energy, those are typically bigger plants, and we see those in the more advanced countries, meaning Scandinavia, you would see in Germany, whatever, like in those countries. You don't see this across, for example, in Eastern Europe, you see much less of it. There are some. So I think there's also this gap between, countries that maybe have more public money to invest and support, their utilities versus some others. And I think that's what we're going to see as well in discussions here in Brussels on some of the legislations. But those plants, they would produce biogas on a wastewater treatment facility, and they would either use this energy, recover the heat and the energy for their own consumption, so they become completely energy neutral, or they inject again the recovery heat to the grid or to the district heating or in other energy systems. And what is important is that also you can you save greenhouse emissions like this, but you could also even use the CO2 that is generated from the biogas production to carbonize drinks. There's a municipality in Oslo, in the Oslo area, that actually produces beer by using the CO2 from the biogas production from the wastewater treatment plant to carbonize the beer. So many examples exist, but we're not going to get there if we just, very fast, if we go in the natural way. I think typically some countries would lag behind. And maybe just one final comment. I saw a question on hydrogen, which is very relevant.
Of course.
And for obviously water technologies company, it's a great opportunity, in terms of providing technologies and be part of this with a very funded as well sector. But I would also really agree with Veronica that we are not connecting the dots, that, we need a lot of energy, and hydrogen is one of the solutions really where Europe sees it, but it also requires a lot of water. So have we looked at this? And I think when the hydrogen strategy was created, the water issue was not so prominent, but now it's more prominent. And even in one member state, we were aware that they wanted to build a new nuclear reactor, and they put out a tender, but it couldn't even advance because the levels of the river nearby was so low that they couldn't even build, because you need certain levels of the water in the river to cool the reactors. So just saying that there's whole water, hydropower, not to mention as well, it impacts so much what we want to do on energy. Stop here.
Many thanks, Tanya. I'll now turn to Abdelkader. Could you please cite a few examples of promising technology and opportunities that can be beneficial to both drinking water distribution and wastewater systems?
Yeah, I can cite one interesting technology, which is for the flow control. Maybe you have heard about it. It's called the green valves. So this specific design, it allows to reduce the dissipated energy that is caused by the throttling of the water through the system. So I see it one interesting technology that can be used in both drinking water, wastewater, in any pressurized system where you need to reduce the pressure. So it can also offer a good resistance to some technical problems of cavitation and vibration, which is indirectly related to the reliability of the system. So I think there is a lot of benefit from this technology that merit to be validated at larger scale with complex situations.
Many thanks, Abdelkader. Vanya, I'd like to turn to you. And I'm curious to listen what else is needed, to stimulate an industrial transformation besides what you already shared.
Thanks for the question. I really like it, because it gives me an opportunity to go into the details of the economics behind what we are talking about. Really, I just want to start by saying that if we want to see an industrial transformation, we shouldn't just focus on technology. Technology is obviously an important element. Technology development and uptake is at the basis of any industrial transformation, but equally important is an enabling environment, as I mentioned during my presentation. And if I may, I would mention what I think are a few elements for this enabling environment. The first one is obviously consistency and certainty in legislation. And in this respect, as I already mentioned, I welcome the proposal on the Industrial Emission Directive revision, because it creates a level playing field. It focuses on transparency and setting targets, which is also boosting ambition. But that might not be enough. We also need to consider, and that's the second element, the economic incentives to investing in technological uptake and development. And I see that as an aspect not entirely developed by the current proposal, and I'd like to see further expanded during the discussion. The way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I only see that economic aspects are mentioned in regard to disproportionality and derogations, but there is no reference to use of economic instruments for accelerating this transition. And this is important once we want to ensure that we reach the maximum level of environmental protection at minimum costs for the operators. The third element, and here I resonate with something that was mentioned before, is access to finance. We know that public investments alone cannot cover the financial means needed to overcome the climate and water crisis. But in order for channeling the investment flows needed, investors are calling for having meaningful and comprehensive data for better track corporate performance. So again, there's an element of having good quality data that was already mentioned by my fellow speakers, not just in relations to understanding possible technological solutions, but also in respect to being able to attract funds. And then the fourth element, and I'll close here, that I see as relevant for creating an enabling environment is considering business models, something that Tanya briefly referred to earlier. Again, the proposal focuses on technological innovation, which again, I want to stress that it's extremely important, but we shouldn't overlook institutional innovation. And let me just close by quoting the World Economic Forum when they say that companies must start to adopt circular economy business models now to remain competitive in the future. So I would really like to see that transformational plans as envisaged by the legislation, not just as long-term plans, but as incentives to act sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Many thanks, Vanya. I am mindful now of the time left. It's just a few minutes. So I would like to close our very, very interesting and exciting discussion today with asking all the speakers for a minute or less reflection following what you learned today, and maybe if you can share your hope for the future. I think it's very clear what we all aim for, but I would be grateful if you could share a minute or less of takeaways or reflection. I don't know who wants to start. Maybe Veronica, do you want to go first?
The typical role of the European Commission. I found the debate extremely enriching because I think we have collectively mapped both the challenges, but also, let's face it, the weaknesses of the current approach, including when we are doing so much at European Commission level in regulatory terms. And I think your analysis is right. The setting the legislation is not enough. Yet, I would say there are many reasons to stay hopeful and continue to be very dynamic in this area. Why hopeful? Because the European Commission, thanks to the European Green Deal, is eventually putting, I think, much more order precisely in the data collection challenges. And you know what happens when you start getting the picture much more accurately on the ground about what's going on. Not later than Monday, there will be a presentation again in ENVI Committee on the European Drought Observatory, just to mention one. Pictures like the one that Vanya Pakanian shows at the very beginning are just, they speak by themselves. The more we will get these, the more this will increase the pressure on policymakers at all level. And my experience is that this is the moment when at some stage something changes. But I think that we need a strong alliance between industrial actors, environmental NGOs, and why not, certainly also the European Commission to raise the awareness further on the importance of this point. We're still not there. I think we're getting very close, and the turning point would be much sooner than we all collectively imagine. So thank you again.
Thank you, Veronica. That's what we all hope for. I would then jump to the digital world. Vanya, can you share a reflection?
Yeah, I can very much follow from what Veronica Manfredi just said. I totally agree on the, and I obviously, the challenges ahead of us are immense. but there are a few things that can be done relatively quickly to ensure that we are effective in delivering the change. And I really want to conclude just to point to a long-hanging fruit that is achievable over the next really few years regarding the legislative process. I'm really hopeful that all the proposals that are under discussion will ensure consistency in the way that we collect data, not just from environmental perspective, but from a corporate perspective. And before it was rightly pointed, the legal links were rightly pointed. Taxonomy was mentioned. I would also add the importance of ensuring that the Industrial Emission Directive links with the proposal for the new Corporate Social Responsibility Directive, because through that channel we will have a set of environmental performance indicators that corporations have to disclose. And in that respect, companies that report to us at CDP are preparing for the new reporting requirements. Our data, the data that we collect on voluntary basis, clearly show that for some metrics like water use, there is a very high disclosure rate. So introducing those type of metrics, mandating the requirement for disclosing those metrics will not cause a regulatory burden, because the companies that disclose to us already do that at a very high level. We are talking about disclosure rates over 90% here. So I'd really like to encourage my fellow speakers, especially on the European side, to ensure this legislative consistency, because that will make much easier for operators to comply with the new rules.
Many thanks, Vanya. Monica, would you like to add some final remarks?
Yes, sorry, I was thrown out from the place I was, so I am in the middle of the I just wanted to say that what I would really wish is quality of the legislation. I think that is a point that is very challenging. Because, of course, not only it makes it more difficult to be implemented, but also it gives signals that are not always easy to understand. And I think that over the last years, above all in climate and energy questions, but not also in financial, in tax, etc., the question of the quality of the legislation is becoming more and more bigger and bigger, because, of course, it is very often the result of a difficult compromise or difficult compromises, and therefore the clarity of the intention and of the ambition of the legislation is no more there. So I think that we really need this alliance that Veronica was talking about, that Tanya also mentioned, also to ensure that rules are clear, are well defined, and people know why those rules are there. And I think that is my best wish for the whole energy, water nexus issues, but also for the different areas of this legislation.
Many thanks, Monica, also for having shared a nice glimpse of Italy.
Of Alba.
Of Alba, thank you very much. Abdelkader, please. Thank you. And finally, then Tanya. Please, Abdelkader.
Yeah, thank you. I want just to share one of the reflections related to this problem. So I think a strong coordination between all topic stakeholders is necessary. And I would like to thank you in this direction, because this webinar of 2 days, one initiative in this direction, and if it can be repeated and increased in size and more organized, because we are talking about the topic from different perspective, and at certain time there is a need of, I would say, coaching to reach the target and to achieve some things that can be measured and motivate people more to do and to give their best, especially I would say the data owners, so the industry itself. So if they can be more open to share what they have as information, so that can drive the effort in the right direction.
Many thanks, Abdelkader. Tanya, the last minute is for you.
Thank you. I agree with everything that's been said, and I think this debate showed really how much we are aligned in the objectives. So we are, going towards the same goal. This is very, very important. In terms of kind of the next steps. What is also very clear from this debate is that we have a big educational job to do ahead of us. This is not only within different parts of the European Commission that are, not dealing with water on a daily basis like Veronica's team, but there are many other parts to educate. I mean, the European Parliament, the member states, but also even going more local, because what goes at the national level, of course, doesn't necessarily go to the more local level where solutions are implemented. So, with industrial actors and so on, we have a big educational job on the one hand. And then on the other hand, super important to implement all the existing technologies already now. We shouldn't wait for it. I mean, we have the REPower EU objectives, and I think they were underlining the energy efficiency targets and all of that. But we have it at EASE, so let's go and accelerate this existing technologies deployment across the board for utilities, industries, buildings, or whatever it's going to be with regard to water.
Thank you, Tanya. So I'm very happy to see that all our agendas seem to be aligned today, and we have a very exciting and, let's say, full future ahead where we can collaborate. So I thank all of the participants in the room and on the web for your extremely interesting contributions. I look forward to keeping on working with you all. And I hope to see you all soon to advance the water agenda across all fields. Thank you very much and have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.